Tonight, fresh details emerge about the consortium Ghana contracted to execute its failed Sky Train project, which cost the taxpayer $2 million. We tell you why the NDC minority in Parliament is describing the project as organized crime.
And which normal decision maker pays out $2 million for a feasibility study before you determine whether the project is bankable? These things only happen when it's an organized crime, when people are careless, clueless, and reckless about public expenditure.
We have the latest.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Now, there is more controversy tonight about Ghana's plans to build the Sky Train that has already cost the taxpayer $2 million. Now, Joy News is learning that the special purpose vehicle set up in Mauritius for the purpose of executing the project has gone dormant since Ghana paid $2 million to it. Today, the NDC minority in Parliament, in a scathing critique, labels a failed endeavor as an organized crime aimed at looting from the state's coffers. We'll hear from the Minority Chief Whip and Ranking Member on the Roads and Transport Committee, Governs Kwame Agboja, pretty shortly. But I've just been joined in the studio by my colleague, Papania Shalia, so we dig a bit more into what we're learning as far as the vehicles set up to execute this project is concerned. And Papa, let's track back to 2019. And let's go to South Africa, where this whole project was first conceived and agreements signed. And if you look at the timelines, it was a pretty happy day for the president and, of course, the railways minister then, Joe Gatti. And the deal was signed at a forum. And this is an important forum the president attended. This is the 2019 Africa Investment Forum. And it was described then as a historic signing of a high-speed railway construction concession agreement for Ghana. What was the president's own assertions at the time this was signed?
So you'd have the president say that, well, it's a great day for Ghana. This was in Johannesburg, I must say that. And he says, I was here last year and I'm back this year to make sure the project moves forward. This proves how important the Africa Investment Forum is. The signing of this agreement is on track to improve the lives of our citizens, and certainly, if you judge from that, that's a very elated precedent here. So he goes on to talk about this particular project. He says, this is what Africa wants: finalized agreements here.
And so that was the president then, and at that time he says this was on track. In fact, they had also had some support from the Africa Development Bank. So at that time, they had clear plans of financing this because of the Africa Development Bank's own involvement. So how much was it going to cost?
So, Evans, the system will transport more than, those are some details, but we know that $2.6 billion was involved at some point, and this is for a high-capacity public transport system that will be completely automated and cost-efficient. They also estimated that was going to move around 280,000 passengers, create some 5,000 jobs somewhere in there.
The expectations were very high indeed. Initial cost estimates was $2.6 billion, as you just indicated. It was going to transport some 380,000 passengers, create 5,000 jobs. So this was a big deal for Ghana, and the signing showed this indeed. Joe Gatti was also there himself. He was a railways minister at the time, and he was also at the signing. And he was stressed that he was cautioned that there was some work still ahead for them to do before this can become reality.
Yes, so Joe Gatti, you have Joe Gatti saying that, well, we have worked hard together to get to this stage of the project. We have more work to be done to be able to tell the world between now and next year. And judging by what it was 2019, this should be judging by 2020, that they should have finished that the project's financing is complete and that its operational phase has begun. And this is Jogate actually in there.
Okay, and we also at that event, a host of other government appointees. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center CEO was also there, Yofi Grant himself. Then issues started emerging on this. The first to pick this up was the Auditor General. The Auditor General in this 2021 report raised a host of issues with this particular arrangement that had happened after we had paid some 2 million CDs, $2 million to the fund that was created. It's a special purpose vehicle through the Africa Investment Holdings Limited that was incorporated in Mauritius. What did the Auditor General find?
So you go to page 193 and you have saying that what the Africa Investment Holdings Limited incorporated a special purpose vehicle SPV on the 11th of December 2018 in the Republic of Mauritius for purposes of establishing Ghana Sky Train Limited to develop the Accra Sky Train project through a concession on design, build, finance and operate arrangement. The fund paid $2 million on 25th February 2019 to Africa Investment Holdings Limited as full consideration for 10 ordinary shares at $1 per share in AI Sky Train Consortium Holdings. Now, thus the premium paid for each share was $199,999. The SPV has reported a net liability for the year 31 December 2020, and this is from the Auditor General's report.
There were preconditions that they had to meet, including licensing.
Yeah. So, Evans, on that particular one, the Auditor General report says that AI Sky Train Consortium Holdings is yet to obtain the license for aeromobile technology required for the SkyTrain project. Now, feasibility studies which will better inform the project economics and required approvals from the Cabinet of Ghana and the Parliament of Ghana were still ongoing at the time this report was released.
And also, the Auditor General at the time was urging some form of recovery of some of the amounts that have been put in already.
Yeah, and clearly he says that would have been difficult. Now, investment in the SPV, he says, could not be recovered if the Accra Sky Train project is unable to secure the licensing and executive and parliamentary approvals. And
they received the recommendation. They told the Auditor General, yes, we've heard the recommendation, so we're going to do something about it. But as we've heard from the minority today, we'll hear from them shortly at this press conference. They insist, and they on the Parliament's Transport Committee, nothing has come out on the back of the findings of the Auditor General from management of the vehicle that was designed to execute this. We've been doing our own checking, trying to establish really this AI SkyTrain Consortium Holdings that was set up in Mauritius. What has become of it? If you do a bit of a digital tracking, it's difficult to locate them and to find what is happening with the work that they set out to do. But we found on a website, which is not theirs, by the way, some sort of detail about what they had claimed to do beyond Ghana. What was it?
Yeah, so Evans, if you look at SkyTrain in general, the small information that we managed to find only stated its headquarters, the sort of organization, what they described as a service providers. Beyond that, it's just a little bit on what they do, friendly elevated passenger and freight transit systems to address Africa's growing passenger and freight traffic congestion challenges. Really, that's all you find about them. But if you are looking for, say, a website to read more about their details when all the projects that they have undertaken over the years, or you're more likely to be booking a hotel rather than getting to read more about AI SkyTrain, the only website we found that had the same name was rather rerouting us to booking a reservation and hotel somewhere we didn't know. But this other website that is not theirs but captures what they want to do also talks a bit about what they believe to be their unique selling proposition, comprising world-class project development, engineering, technology, and construction expertise. And they work closely with African governments, the private sector, and the global finance and investment community, committed to environmental and high-impact infrastructure investments. As we've seen, Ghana's has materialized here. Today, the minority held a press conference, and they have a series of complaints. What is it? Yeah, so Evans, first of all, they were looking at the Auditor General's report, and right from there, they're also raising questions that since this deal was signed, you have the president there, you have the minister in charge at the time there, you have all the relevant bodies there to sign this project. Nothing has happened to that project since it started. So where is it? If for nothing, then the shares that we have paid into this company should be returned to the country.
And before the company actually even starts to do feasibility study, someone in government have decided to pay $2 million to this entity. If government was not the one funding the Sky Train, what was the $2 million meant for? But the important question is this. When you have a situation where the minister then says in 2023 now that he always believed that before the project takes off, there should be a cabinet approval, there should be a parliamentary approval, PPA approval. Since none of these things were approved, in fact, the Auditor General report suggested that the company did not even have the necessary license to operate the system they wanted to operate. So the question is, what was the reason for government to act in a way to give out $2 million? Who actually took the decision to pay this entity in Mauritius? And which normal decision maker pays out $2 million for a feasibility study before, as they put it, the project will determine whether the project is bankable? These things only happen when it's an organized crime, when people are careless, clueless, and reckless about public expenditure because they don't care. I think the minimum the Auditor General should be asking for is a refund of the $2 million. In fact, I've made this call in the past that this is not an ambiguous situation. As of the time the $2 million was paid, there was no valid contract between Ghana and any entity. That SPV is a foreign entity as we speak. There's no evidence that any, feasibility study have been done, given to government and approved. So what was the $2 million for? The minimum. That $2 million can pay some of the school feeding contractors, some of the suppliers to buffer stock.
Let's get more on this. Let's bring in the Vice Chair of the Roads and Transport Committee in Parliament, Alex Tete. Mr. Tete, thanks for your time here on Top Story. Okay, we lost him there. But part of what the Auditor General had raised was a few licensing issues that the SPV itself needed to deal with before it can proceed to execute this particular project. And part of it had to do with parliamentary approvals. And it talks about the investment in the SPV itself will be very difficult to recover if the Sky Train project is unable to secure licensing and the executive and parliamentary approvals. The question is, did that happen subsequent to the agreement that was signed in South Africa on the back of that international forum where the president was there and signed this? Now, the then Railways Minister, Joe Gatti, had been speaking about this actually in the past because questions have been asked of him on this, on other networks. And he was of the view that the failure of the project is not because government did not have the funds, but the SPV failed to raise the needed funds to execute. And remember that from the Auditor General's own account, Ghana had already paid its share of this of $2 million, which was our contribution to it. But he alleges that the Accra Sky Train project, the managers of that project that had been set up to execute this, had failed to raise the funds, despite, as we've just indicated to you, the assurances that had come in from the ADB and others. I want to go back to Parliament now and bring in the Vice Chair of the Transport Committee in Parliament, Mr. Alex Tete. Mr. Tete, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You had your colleagues on the other side on the committee.
Actually, I have not heard them. I wasn't around. I just arrived in Accra.
This Sky Train project has been a long-running issue. $2 million was spent. The Auditor General picked up on it. As far as you are concerned, what briefings have your committee received on the status of that particular project?
First of all, let me thank you for the opportunity. And for once, let me actually say that I support the call of minority for the SCADs to refund the money to the state. I was not a committee member from 2017 to 2020. I was made a vice chairman from 2021. And even though we have a briefing that the project is going to start, since then, I have not gotten any information from the appropriate quarters. So once the Auditor General has actually revealed this particular situation that they should refund the money, I think that the state authority or the ministry should make sure that the appropriate quarters refund the money to the states.
The Auditor General made the findings in 2021. Surprised that we are in 2023 and we've not had an update on that yet. From all indications, this money is still with the Accra Sky Train consortium, to which we pay the money to.
Yeah, like I'm saying, I was not a committee member. You know, the Auditor's General report was from 2019 to 2020. And I joined the committee on 2021 as a vice chairman. We actually have a briefing from the ministry. But since then, like I was saying, there is no briefing again. And if the Auditor General has actually said that the government should actually retrieve the money from the SCADs, I believe that we should be a law abandoned. And Auditor General is one of the institutions created by our constitution. So I support the call from the minority that they should refund the money to the state.
I mean, you're a committee with powers to bring the officials in to explain to you why, although you back the retrieval of the money, it hasn't happened since. It's been almost 2 years since this was done. Are we going to see the committee biting here, getting the officials in to explain why this money still remains with the consortium when they have an
Once the
exit?
news has come up and the minority has raised it in the public domain, I believe that my chairman for the committee would do justice and actually invite the appropriate ministry for us to actually handle it. And I believe once we invite them, we'll actually brief the public what actually happened in the committee meeting.
The minority raised the point that it's not enough to just retrieve the money. They actually raised the possibility of organized crime here, and that this could amount to causing financial loss because we've put in money, $2 million over a period that we could have used for other things. You agree that this should go beyond just retrieval of the money?
Yes, I believe that.
To mean what exactly? What else do you want to see yourself specifically?
I mean, we have state institutions which actually handle these things, like Attorney General. So once we find something wrong with this particular money, or as Auditor General has said, I believe that after retrieving the money, the appropriate authority should face the sanction. I mean, this country, if you read Article 34, Clause 8, indicate that the state to ensure to eradicate corruption. And these things should be stopped. You know, if you look at the Auditor General, the waste of money from the public institution that happens, if we actually deal with all state money in a careful manner, we won't go to IMF. We go look at what has happened. And today, I was watching the Public Accounts Committee. It's boring. And I think that we should be up and doing as a committee and other state institutions. So I totally support the minority call for retrieval of the money and at the same time prosecution.
The special purpose vehicle that was set up to execute this, they needed parliamentary approval to go ahead with the project. Are you aware if they got that?
Yeah, I'm aware.
So they got the approval?
Yes.
Do you know when that happened?
Like I said, the contract, if my memory serves me right, around 2019. And like I said, I joined the committee in 2021. And we have a wide briefing, and some of us even question why the delay of the project. But the minister is paying because of the COVID and other things. But for now, it's long overdue. And I believe that we should retrieve the money and use it for a different purpose.
You've said that if beyond retrieval, let the agencies responsible for the disbursement of these funds also face sanctions. Will that include, would you support prosecution?
Well, it will depend on the Attorney General. If you find it to be a crime or something like that, I think the Attorney General and the Special Prosecutor will handle it. But I support the retriever, and if go beyond the retriever, they should pay interest on this particular money. Because sometimes we just let people go scot-free without any surcharge or any responsibility. And I believe that we should be very mindful about money that we entrusted to people's hands. So let us actually record to the committee. And I know my chairman actually is not feeling well. But once I'm done with you, I'll brief him and he will call for emergency meeting.
I mean, the challenge that we've had with these issues, of course, I mean, you are a member of the governing party. The accusation from the minority is that if you leave it to the state, the Attorney General will not be interested in prosecuting people who are members of the government as well. And that's why this may not see any particular action going forward.
I don't think so. I mean, they have raised the issue, and it is one of the institutions of government that has actually raised this alarm. So once they have actually put it on the public domain, and it's not that they have actually revealed this particular, uncovered, but it is the Attorney General. So if they have actually thrown more light on it in the public domain, I think in the committee, we don't do any partisan in the committee. So I'll plead with my colleagues that we should call for emergency meeting and invite the appropriate minister to come and explain the reason why this money has delayed to date.
You made a point that you had a briefing on this. At the time that you were briefed on it, were you convinced that this was something that Ghana should have thrown money at in the first place?
It is a viable project, but because of the COVID, that's what they told us, that it has delayed. And from 2021 that I joined committee, we are in 2023. And I believe that there is no more COVID, even though if COVID is there, it is down. And I believe that we should actually call the appropriate ministry and the one that they have entrusted the money to, so that they can explain the reason why they have not actually executed the project.
You talk about the ministry. This will directly be the Railways Ministry. In fact, as we've tracked back, we'll go back to 2019 when it just was first signed. Both the president and Joe Gate were at the event when this was signed, and they made commitments and they look forward to execution. This will go way up if indeed there is going to be action.
Well, like I was saying, nobody is above the law. And once the law comes, I think that as a country, we should actually free our mind from this political interference. And then let the state institution entrusted with this particular should deal with it. So, like I was saying, if we find anything wrong with whatever they are doing after the retrieval, I went further to say that they should pay interest on this particular money. And after that, if there is a criminality on it, the state institution, we should allow them to work and they can take it up.
Thank you very much, Alex Tete. He's a vice chair on the Transport Committee in Parliament, backing further sanctions. Just not retrieve the money, let it come with interest. And if you find any wrong, sanction, prosecute, choose what you will. But if you look at the Auditor General's report, when the Auditor General raised the questions and asked the agencies in charge, particularly the Special Purpose Vehicle, to take steps to first look into the feasibility and also examine the recoverability of the investments made in there, it notes that the management actually accepted that this is something that should happen. And this was as far back as 2020. From what we're just hearing there from both sides of the Transport Committee, they've not had an update on whether this indeed has happened. What's your view on this? This was a Sky Train that was supposed to transform transportation in this country. And from what we've just been looking at back at the time when this was first signed, it had lofty ideas. The vision was pretty juicy. 380,000 passengers annually were going to be transported on this Sky Train, creating 5,000 jobs. And it was then expected to cost some $2.6 billion. 055-1111-997.
Hey, you ever buy credits where you